I remember the day that she said that she wanted to separate. And for one, it came kind of out of nowhere for me. I didn't see it coming. I just remember thinking, like, this can't be happening. It was devastating. It really was. My heart rate would stay, in the hundreds just all the time. I stumbled upon your video. It was probably one of the best decisions I did in that moment. Back to my normal, relaxed self with a much better mindset moving forward.
You just got to be coachable.
Men, the admission for today's video is only one thing. Press that like button, but more importantly for you, press the subscribe button. Make sure after you hit the subscribe button that you do change those settings to all, and I don't want you to miss one single video that could actually help you save your marriage.
So today I'm with Jeremiah. He is sharing his experience as a paid student inside the DivorceStoppers program. And inside the program, we actually have a support community called Iron Sharpens Iron, where we truly believe, because it's been scientifically proven, also backed up by scripture, and you could look at it like the other way, that the law of reciprocity is something that's manifested in a reality. Give and it'll be given to you. And today Jeremiah has said that he would like to give and share his experience and his story to see if it's something that you can relate to where you're at today in your life, your marriage, your relationship, maybe a lot of different areas of your life that can relate to you where you might be at today, to see, is there another path that we could maybe show up today to give you a reason to have hope that you actually can implement action steps to exercise your faith, to change your life, and that there really is a reason to be hopeful. So Jeremiah, thank you for showing up here today to serve your other brothers inside the community of the other students, and also to reach out to people that maybe are in a really bad place today that need just some carrot dangled in front of them to give them a reason to have hope. So welcome to the program. It's very good to see you.
Thanks, Denver. Happy to be here.
Very, very much my pleasure. So Jeremiah, what I'd like to do is start with a question. And my question is, what was life like for you when your wife came to you and said, I want it out? I want you to go back and visit that moment and experience the spirituality, the financial, the emotional, the thoughts and the feelings that were running in your mind when she presented you with that. And then what happened in the coming days and weeks before you found this program?
Well, if going back to that day, I remember the day that she said that she wanted to separate. And for one, it came kind of out of nowhere for me. I didn't see it coming. I felt like everything was going great. We were kind of getting into a groove of things, and just out of nowhere, she said she wanted to separate. And when that happened, I remember just the physical effects of it. My heart rate would stay, in the hundreds just all the time. I was in this constant state of stress all the time, to the point to where, like, the world didn't feel real around me. I'd be out driving somewhere and everything felt fake. I did not feel like I was in the right spot. I did not feel like my life was what it should be in that moment. And I just remember thinking, like, this can't be happening. Just almost total dread. And it felt like literally everything around me was falling. My family, my wife, like, what is going to happen to my kids? When am I going to get to see them? Financial situation, how is this going to work? And it was devastating. It really was. And it was terrifying because it was the first time in 20 years that I didn't know what to expect the next day. Like, every day you get up, you go to work, you meet with your family, you hang out, you do your normal life. And then out of nowhere, all this changes. And for someone like me who's not very good with change in some situations, that was so hard to think about. And it was to the point where I couldn't even imagine what to do. And that's when I got online and kind of started searching. And I actually joined a previous program before because I thought it could help get my mind right. And it did in some sense. But I remember going through those videos and just thinking, like, there's no real action plan to these videos. I'm going through there, I'm listening to somebody, which is basically a YouTube video, and it's just video after video telling me ideas and concepts and not really telling me how to implement them. And then on top of that, there was really no support outside the videos. I watch the videos, I interpret them how I think they should be, and then I try to implement that myself. So I kept kind of searching, and that's when I stumbled upon your video just by chance. I didn't search Griffin. I didn't search DivorceStoppers. You just kind of popped up. And I watched one of your videos and you started talking about some of the things that I was seeing with my wife. Not necessarily how I was feeling, some of her actions and the things that she was doing. And it was lining up exactly with what she was doing, from the enemy of the marriage, from, this total shift in view on what our marriage was for 20 years. It went from 1 month her telling me how happy and great things were to the next month her talking about how she hadn't been happy in 20 years. And going through that and listening to your videos, I just felt the need to reach out to you and see if you could help. And really, it was probably one of the best decisions I did in that moment.
Wow, that's amazing. By the way, Jeremiah, that was very vulnerable. Thanks for sharing that so passionately and intimately. I want to ask you a question about everything that you just shared. What's interesting as, when we hear stories about where somebody's at, if we can relate to those stories, and as you were sharing that story, one of the reasons that I still do occasionally do enrollment calls myself is because it takes me back to when I was in that situation. And I never, ever, 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 ever want to forget what it was like to be in those shoes that you just described, because that makes sure that when I show up on a coaching call, I'm doing it from that place. I'm doing it from the place of this person, especially if they're a new student, they might be in a place where they are so lost and so hopeless that they don't know what else to do. And there are so many programs out there that are teaching people to maybe feel better about themselves, but at what cost? And in some cases that could potentially be backfiring because it's zero in the area of leadership in communication. And that type of leadership is not real leadership because it leaves behind the very person that you're trying to help. One of the reasons that spouses often say they want a divorce is because that they're hurting, they have their own failures, they're walking in guilt, they're walking in shame, they're walking in childhood trauma. By the way, so many people, a lot of counselors will tell people, your marriage can't be restored until he deals with his childhood trauma. The marriage can't be restored until she's healed from her PTSD or the abuse that she suffered as a child. Well, is that not maybe just a tinge of bullshit? Because all of those things existed when the marriage was established. When you had a wedding 5 months ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, there was childhood trauma then, there was emotional issues then, and the marriage was actually several years of it could have been wonderful. So those things don't have to heal, and that's a lie from the pit of hell that's being told in other programs and especially in counseling sessions for marriage and individuals, that you have to heal before you get back together. And a lot of times the actual act of reconciliation, regardless of when the reconciliation takes place, one person can help someone else heal. A marriage being restored can bring about healing for both, even if it's stuff that they're not even aware of. Because part of restoring a marriage is teaching communication, which is, I believe, what's missing from all of the programs out there. You mentioned that you were in another program. About 47% of our students come from other programs. Let me ask you a question around that. What program were you in? And for you, what was that missing that caused you to start Googling and going on YouTube to maybe look for something else? And I think one of the reasons that most of my students come from other programs is because so far, we've never spent $1 in advertising. And so what happens is if I start running an ad, if I'm not really, really responsible about who sees that ad and the way that I set up the outreach, my ad will reach somebody that's hopeless, even if my product is not a good fit for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, when the first program I joined was the Marriage Reset program. And going through it, it's laid out. You have the video modules and step by step, and it goes through, the different phases of marriage and restoration and how that can be done. And then it kind of goes into feminine psychology and masculine psychology. And the program was okay. And it wasn't that it was bad. It just didn't have the one-on-ones that we have within the Divorce Stoppers, and it didn't have the personal touch that the Divorce Stoppers have. When I was going through this program, it felt very out of the box, where you pick it up, one size fits all, everybody can do it, everybody has their own way to implement it, and that just didn't work for me because I just didn't feel like it fit my situation the way it needed to. So that's kind of what led me to start looking a little bit deeper and researching a little bit more into other programs.
I want to ask you a question about that. I don't know if I'm familiar with that. Who teaches that? What program is that?
That is, I think, Josh Hudson.
Yeah. So if you kind of look back and say, okay, when you started another program and then you come into the Divorce Stoppers program, was there a noticeable difference right away? I mean, you know what step one in the Divorce Stoppers program is. Was there a noticeable difference that the first week in the program with what we're teaching, what was the mindset coming into our program compared to other programs that you've tried, or that particular program that you're talking about?
Yeah, it was completely different. It was like hit the ground running in the Divorce Stoppers. You get in, you start working on communication and start trying to build intimacy and trust right from the first module. Whereas the other program was more focused on me and things I needed to do to myself to feel better about myself so I could restore that part of my life. Really heavily focused on things like, pursuing your calling, going to the gym, feeling better about yourself, and understanding why you're where you're at, but it didn't really focus on how to repair where you're at.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I like to say is that it's wonderful, and it's also a requirement if you really want to restore a relationship. And I would even go so far as to say, if you really want to step into your calling, if you really want to step into your anointing of what you're created on this earth to do as a man.
A lot of you thinking, well, I've got to become the best version of myself if I want my marriage restored. I've got to go change. I've got to go do everything differently. All the stuff that she told me of the reason she wants out of the marriage, I've got to go change those things. If you've already done all of that, but it hasn't worked, put that in the comments if that's you. Have you become the man that she said she's always wanted, but it's not enough? Maybe you were an alcoholic. Maybe you were a controlling narcissist. Maybe you were a psychopath. Maybe you were verbally abusive. Maybe you weren't intimate with her. Maybe you didn't value her opinion. But now all of a sudden, you do all of those things, but it still hasn't worked. Here's the question. Put in the comments if you have realized that that's not enough. You changing is a beautiful thing, and that's probably a requirement.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be enough to save the marriage if she has confirmation bias.
Yeah.
You've got to lead her to change.
If you really want to step into your anointing of what you're created on this earth to do as a man, that unless you understand how to level up in your leadership, not in a way that just changes you, which I do believe is a requirement for all of us to have the life we want, we've got to change. We've got to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. But transforming by the renewing of our mind, where it's just all about me and my changes, what kind of leadership is that? If I'm not giving back, then is that really what I'm created here for? And I'm going to paraphrase that in a different way. If my leadership is not changing everyone around me, then that's not the leadership that I want to have. Now, that was Denver's old way of thinking, but the new version of me to walk now in the understanding that I actually can have the life that I want. I can have the relationships that I want. I can have the career that I want. I can have the income that I want. And that is going to require me to grow as a man, to grow as a person. What is the scripture in the Bible? Give and it will be given to you. Relationships are never going to change in a way that's intimacy. Even in masculine relationships with your guy friends, you will never have the intimate relationships with people that God has put in your life if you don't understand how to walk up into a level of leadership and change so much on the inside that you're causing other people to look at you and say, what's going on with you? What have you got? What magic pill did you swallow? I want some of that. Can I have that too? Because that's leadership in a way that changes other people. Specifically concerning marriage restoration, for anybody that's watching this, you can get in the gym, you can get your life back on track, you can start ignoring her or doing something called no contact. But how is that going to restore a marriage if you don't change your communication in a way that it actually builds intimacy, makes her and other people around you, your children, your colleagues, your coworkers, your friends, makes other people feel like you actually hear them, you actually see them, and that you value them and those relationships. That's leadership, and that type of leadership where you can communicate in a way that makes other people in your life feel heard, valued, and seen, it causes them to change. A failed marriage will hardly ever be restored if the man goes and makes all the changes that he thinks the wife wants him to make, because those changes are not enough to change her. You have to have the right type of leadership, and that starts with psychological communication. Let me ask you a question about, so you're in another program, your wife had brought separation on the table, possibility of divorce. How long did you walk in that season of hell until you decided to do something different? And what was that walk like? How long did you stay in that place? For me, it was 6 months when I walked through what you walked through. How long did you walk through that, and what was that journey like?
It was about 3 months for me, and as I was going through that, like I said, things just didn't feel real. They felt so disorganized that it was hard for me to focus, and it was to the point to where I was trying to make up for things. I would, do all the dishes, mop the floors, like all these things that I thought I needed to do to make things better. I was trying to fix things in that moment, knowing that it wasn't going to fix it. Because every time I would do something, it's like, why are you doing that now? Why didn't you do that 6 months ago? Why now? Is it because I'm threatening to leave? Like, where is this coming from? So it kind of came off more as, hey, look at these things I'm doing now, please stay. And I don't think that's the right mentality. I
It came
should
off as
have, because
manipulative, right? Because
soon
it
as
was
I
manipulative.
yeah,
Not on
exactly.
purpose.
Yeah, exactly. It really was. And it's more of like, hey, this is what it could be if you stay. And it wasn't real. And you don't even realize that until you join something like your program, and you can kind of start identifying those habits and patterns that you had that you didn't even know were manipulative or controlling.
Yeah, 100%, because you don't know what you don't know. And in relationships particular, you're oftentimes too close to your situation to see your situation, and you making changes without making the kind of changes that will lead her to change, she will always resent those changes. So leaving somebody else behind as you make changes is working on the marriage, and working on the marriage is exactly what never works. Let me ask you a follow-up question. As a man, how did it hit you knowing that you were facing losing your family, the legacy that you had in your mind that was going to be forever, losing yourself at the same time?
I felt like a complete failure. Like, as people, we put ourselves in buckets. Like, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I have a job, and we put all of ourselves into these buckets. And when one of those buckets starts to crumble down, like, I am no longer a husband, like a piece of you feels like it's missing. And then the other bucket gets threatened where, okay, I'm a part-time father now. So now all I have is my job. Like, it starts to get to the point to where you start to lose who you are, and you forget how to feel normal in those moments, because there's big chunks of you that feel like they're missing.
All right, so let me ask you a question about that. So within the line of thinking of what you just said, when you look back, do you even recognize that man anymore? So I'm going to ask a follow-up to the statement you just made. When you look back during those months when you were walking that walk, do you even recognize that man, that version of yourself? Is he still alive? Do you even recognize him? Is this the first time you've thought about what it was like to be that guy?
Yeah, it's
Since
been
I
a
met
while.
him.
Like, looking back on that, it's like that guy was so scared. He was so afraid of what was unknown, and trying to fix things that couldn't be fixed. Like, I think you said at one point, like, you're not in love with your wife, you're in love with the memory of what you had. And it took me a long time to realize that, like, okay, this part of my life is gone, and that's okay. And that everything going forward from there, outside of food, water, and shelter, is just a preference. Like, there's everything else is just a preference. You don't really need it. It's nice to have, and you might want it, but it's not going to kill you, and it's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, 100%. All of those things are personal preferences, and stepping back and getting perspective, getting somebody else to help you see where you're at, and also giving you a reason to have hope to go where you want to go, can actually help you transform in a way that not only changes yourself, it changes other people. So for anybody that's watching this video right now, if you are currently walking in that place where you're feeling hopeless, you feel like you literally are on a train that's going to hell, and you would give anything to to put the brakes on the train, to slow it down, to put it in reverse, to take control of the steering wheel and change the direction that it's going, but you just don't know how to do it. Number one, keep listening to the rest of this video. But number two, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, we have a free text message communication training that we're going to be launching here in the next couple of weeks. And I want you to make sure and do me a favor. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel. But more importantly for you, so you don't miss additional teachings like this, hit the bell notification and make sure you change the settings to all. And also right now, put in the comments, if you're interested in that training that we're doing for subscribers only, put in there that, yes, I want this free training, and we will send you a link to that free training when we launch it here in the next couple of weeks. And I think it's going to be very, very invaluable. So let's move on to, as you were making changes, you were figuring out what didn't work. So you said that you tried another program and you pretty much have already walked through what wasn't working about that program and maybe some other things that you were doing. What made this program different from everything else that you tried?
You know, the main thing that made it different was you and the coaches. Like when I joined these other programs, you go through and you just get videos, and that's great. But what about when you have a question about how to do something in the video? So with your program, I had access to Marcel pretty much anytime I wanted. I could message him and he would reach out and follow up. He would help me with anything that I was feeling in that moment. And I'm pretty sure I bugged him to death because I would write him and he would write me back probably within an hour or two. And then with you, our one-on-one coaching sessions where you go through and, you know, how I view a video, but how you meant that video might be two different things. So it gives me the opportunity to go in and say, hey, Denver, what does this really mean? And you've given me some tough love along the way. And I really do appreciate that because, you know, when you're too close to it, sometimes you can't see the bigger picture. So you coming in and Marcel coming in and getting this outside perspective on how I feel about something versus how it really is. It was so helpful. And I can't thank you all enough for that.
Well, first of all, I know Marcel would say the same thing, that it's both of our pleasure. And I would say even your other brothers in the program that you have access to, the community. I want to ask you a question. And I meant to ask this earlier, but I forgot. So please forgive me. But I'm going to back step for just a second. So you were walking through hell. You were kind of hopeless. You were looking on Google. You were looking on YouTube, probably looking at local churches. I don't really know what all you were looking at, but I know that you found another program, Marriage Mastery or whatever that was. And there were some things in that was helpful to you, but it wasn't helping you particular in your situation to accomplish the goals that you specifically wanted to accomplish. As you're going through what you're going through, it sounds like you invested your time, your financial resources, your mind, body, and soul into some things that you were trying, but it wasn't enough. At what point, as you were doing some things that you had enrolled in with the intentions for it to work, did you say, I've got to do something, I've got to change, enough is enough? Like, this is not working for me. I need to do something different. When did you have that mindset?
You know, it was about in December. I was going through and I was just sitting there and feeling these feelings and kind of feeling stuck. And I knew I never wanted to be in this situation again. I don't ever want to have a failed relationship like this. I don't ever want to feel this way and have this uncertainty of my family and my finances and my future all kind of up in the air. So that's when it really hit me, and just thought, I never want to do this again, ever.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let me ask you a follow-up question to that. So walking through hell, you made a decision, I'm going to try something to get myself out of this. You chose to become resourceful enough to change your life. You invested in some resources. You put them in a place that gave you some benefit, but maybe not the benefit that you had hoped for. So you decided to do something different. You got back on Google and YouTube. You ended up finding my program, finding me on YouTube first, I'm assuming, booked a call with us. Ultimately, you enrolled. You met me. You met the other coaches. You met the other students. So let's talk about, you said the first thing that you noticed was the support, the communication, where you're taught to actually hit the ground running, doing something, not to sit around and necessarily change your feelings, but to implement action steps to actually change yourself and other people in your life. I would almost call that masculine rebuild. So from that approach, where would you say you are today compared to the man you were back then when you started?
Oh, I'm in a much better place. Just my overall mindset as a whole, not just in relationships, but in all my interactions and all my thoughts and all my future plannings. You kind of get this idea and it gets ingrained in you that you're positive, polite, and playful in all things. So anything that happens to you is very easy just to kind of brush off because it's really not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. And then on top of that, you kind of gain this ability to be less reactive in all situations. Like when you go into this, you're really focused on relationships because that's where your mind is. But as you go through this, you kind of start to see where these concepts and ideas can be applied in other places of your life, not just relationships. And it really helps kind of build this bigger picture of who you want to be and who you should be, if that makes sense.
You know, you were at a place that was just hopeless. And then you made a decision to become resourceful. You said, I don't know what I don't know, and I'm smart enough to know that. I'm going to choose to become resourceful. I'm not just going to give up on life, give up on my family, give up on my career and just sit around and be depressed. I'm choosing to do something to change my situation, and I'm going to find somebody to help me do that. You ended up in another program, and then that didn't really give you the result that you were hoping for, so you ended up finding us. So you had mentioned that as soon as you joined the DivorceStoppers program, you noticed right away that it was radically different from what you had been in before in another program, that the support structure, the coaches, the teaching taught you, though this is not just a YouTube video, this is action steps and communication and intimacy. Day one, you hit the ground running, and we're here to hold you accountable to make sure that you do that. So I call that masculine rebuild, which is the correct type of leadership that actually causes other people to change. Marriages are never restored if the man changes, unless the wife also changes as well. How do we change a wife? We have a goal that through our leadership, we have a goal to lead everybody to step into their anointing, their calling, that if they have a relationship with us and we choose to give them our time, friends, family members, people that are in your circle. For a lot of you watching this video, there's some people in your circle you need to eliminate. For a lot of others, you don't have enough masculine men in your circle. You do need to include that if you want your marriage restored. It's one of the reasons that your marriage failed. But as you started learning, what is it like to have masculine rebuild, which is what we now call building intimacy through communication in step 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. And then we make sure you have support if you get stuck, if you don't understand something. If you go back and you compare today to the man that you were before you started step 1.1, step 1.2, had some tough love, had some coaches to help you, had some coaches to kick your ass, had some coaches to love you and other brothers to say, we're here for you, but you got to go do this. Even if you don't feel like it and it makes you uncomfortable and sometimes even scares the shit out of you. Go back and look at the old version of you today and compare to where you are today. How has your confidence, how has your confidence, how has your masculinity come back online compared to where it was before you actually joined day one of this program?
Yeah, when you start the program, you go into it with this idea that it's going to be focused on a relationship, or rebuilding a relationship. And, at the core, that's kind of the goal. But as you're going through this, it's much bigger than that. We kind of go through and you learn not just how to communicate with your wife, but how to communicate with your children, your coworkers, your friend. And it's applicable across all your relationships. And we build in this idea of, you say, I am happy, I am happy, I am happy, I am positive, I'm polite, and I'm playful. And you go through this whole thing of, things that are bad aren't really that bad. It's not a big deal. And it teaches you to be less reactive in all situations, not just in your relationships, but unexpected things that happen in your life. You can actually take a minute, see it for what it is, and then build your plan around that. So, just looking at that aspect of my life, it's become much less anxiety ridden because there's less pressure to do things in the moment. I can actually take a minute, be less reactive, and move forward in that way.
Yeah, I completely relate to that. I think one of the things, though, that a comment that you brought up was a lot of the things that we think are important, they're not so important. And I know somebody actually told me that when I was walking this walk. And so I want to go back and revisit that. And here's one of the things that I think that probably is going to be a flag that comes up, that when some people hear that, they're going to think, well, some of the things I think important, they are important. For example, I'm facing a legal divorce, and I have busted my ass for 20, 25 years building a legacy of wealth. And now I'm about to see it all wiped out because she's asked for half. And I'm thinking that if I give her half, then maybe there's a chance we can reconcile if I play nice guy in the divorce. And so for things like that, I really do want to point out that what Jeremiah in particular is talking about, that is not what we're talking about. I would agree that those things are very freaking important. And the reason that I bring that up is one of the reasons that we have live coaching in the program right now. We're doing multiple times throughout the week as in addition to basically 24-hour support inside our Iron Sharpens Iron community, is that when you're faced with legal stuff, families' finances are about to be challenged. Those things, if you don't navigate those waters quickly and you don't do it the right way, that can be so much more damaging to the relationship. If there's any men watching this video right now and you know that you're in a danger spot where you're about to basically enable her financially because you think that's the right thing to do because you're wanting the relationship restored, put that in the comments right now. And I would even encourage you maybe even to go to the next step and put time on your side. When I was going through what you were going through, I was in a season of, I would almost say, a state of fear. I didn't know what to do. You don't know what you don't know. I did do exactly what you did. I chose to become resourceful. I reached out and invested in some things that promised that they were going to give me X result, right? And I thought that's the result I was going to get. So I start walking in those things. They made me feel better about myself, but they made zero contribution to a masculine rebuild. Nobody taught me how do I build intimacy and communication with masculine leadership that doesn't just change Denver, it changes other people in my life. Leadership is leading other people to change. And so pivoting into the masculine, in my opinion, what a lot of the world is selling today, calling it masculine leadership, is actually feminine bullshit. Why do I say that? If your life is not affecting other lives and changing them, it can't be called leadership because it's leading no one but yourself, which is selfish. And I'm not saying that femininity is selfish, but what I am saying is that if that's all you're making it, that is definitely not walking in the right kind of leadership or masculinity. So with that being said, let's move to the next thing. So with that being said, I just wanted to make that point that if that is in your place where you're facing a legal divorce, you need to put time on your side. Stick in the comments right now what you're going through. I'll respond to every single one of those comments and maybe kind of give you some wisdom around what should you do, because most likely if you have fucked up so long in the marriage that you've let it get to the point that it's failing and now you're in a legal divorce, most likely that's a result of you aligning your actions with your feelings. And if you start being agreeable in a divorce and aligning your actions with what you think is going to work, guess what? How's that worked out for you so far? You might be making mistake after mistake after mistake, and those kind of mistakes are going to make the restoration so much more difficult and in some cases even impossible. So let me ask you the next question. How do people, not your wife, but how do your children, your friends, your family members, your coworkers, your employer, your employees, how do they now respond to you that maybe is in a way that was different than your communication and the activities when communication with them before?
Yeah. So, I'm actually a pretty reserved, shy person. So coming into this program, I think you challenged me in a couple of areas to break outside of that box a few times. And I think those were some of our most difficult coaching calls, was around doing things that are uncomfortable. So getting into that aspect, I've noticed, not only with my kids, but my coworkers, I'm much more open with them. I'm much more willing to, I guess, give up a little bit of control and let them kind of make mistakes and do their own thing. And, dad's there when you need me. Because I think at one point you mentioned, offering help when someone doesn't want help can just build resentment. And that's so true. And at work, I've noticed my coworkers and my peers are much more engaging with me, like in business meetings and in partnership meetings. I can reach out and really communicate and talk to them in a way where they feel heard, valued, and seen. So they're much more open to ideas and concepts that I want to bring up.
Yeah, isn't that a beautiful thing when you give other people to grow around you, to mature? And what I like to say a lot of times is when you give up control, you're positioned to actually be in control of your own life. And when you start seeing people in a way with the intentions to make them feel heard, valued, and seen, that's going to require that you give them permission to fail, fall, and fuck up. If you're raising children, that's how you teach children how to become adults that don't need you. And it also gives them permission to mature. A lot of you watching this video right now, your wife has walked out the door because she has been smothered in the relationship. She was in your garden. You had a responsibility as a spouse to fertilize your plants in your garden. What do I mean by that? In a healthy marriage, the man is going to give the wife permission to blossom. You're going to know what color the petals on her flower are. Most marriages that fail, the man has no idea that she's in a flower. He thinks she's a plant that doesn't bloom. Why? Because out of good intentions, he was taught by his dad to just take care of her and make the decisions. And there's something about being decisive as a man and making decisions. But part of that is to allow a girl to grow into a woman within the marriage. So through communication, that's going to require that you let her to mature as a woman. How many, put in the comments right now, if in your entire marriage, you feel like that your helpmate, the Bible calls it, was never really your helpful because she was too emotionally immature to ever actually help you. Well, what's the reason for that? You were a stumbling block and stifled that growth. What do I mean by that? You never gave her permission to fail, fall, or fuck up. You controlled it all because you wanted to protect her. Now, when we're younger and we're in a new marriage, it's kind of like sexy to think, who's your daddy? But if you really want a healthy relationship with a wife that's going to go to death with you, and you're going to be sitting on the front porch and you both have gray hair or no hair in my case, but maybe a gray beard that I'm still rubbing on beard color every day with. If you want that soulmate relationship, it's never going to happen in a way that you're both happy unless you allow her to be a woman. How do you do that? Allow her to be an adult. Give her permission to fail, fall, and fuck up. Let her make mistakes. How do you do that? Step back and see her. And for when I decided to do this, I had never done it in my entire life. I hadn't done it with my wife. I had never done it with employees. I had never done it with people above me, below me, and I didn't do it with my children. I literally was a father that was raising children. I wasn't raising adults. I was raising children that were still going to be children when they left my house. Instead, that's where you get to give them permission to fail, fall, and fuck up, but build intimacy where they know you're there with your hand out to help them back up. What you just described to me was now your coworkers, they know that you're stepping back so that they can go forward. And that's what will take your life in so many areas, including financially, to a place where the impossible can become possible. This is why the majority of my students, the majority meaning I think 100% of students surveyed, every time we do surveys every 3 years, say that once they graduate from the program, their income increases significantly. And I think the last time we did a survey, 76% of students said after 2 years of graduating from the program, even though it's lifetime access, when you're a graduate, income increased by over 100%. Why? Because they were transformed by the renewing of their mind and the ability to see other people, and it changed every relationship in their life because they started seeing that there was value. The Bible says wisdom is worth more than rubies, and so many people want to go teach that. Well, that's not talking about money. I am so freaking sorry. It is literally talking about money because there is so much money in wisdom. And if every relationship you have, you think that you're the smartest one in the relationship, you probably are, but you're missing opportunities to see those rubies because you can still grow. And right now, put in the comments right now if you're judgmental. Maybe if somebody, their sexuality is not the same as yours, their orientation, their religious, their political beliefs, so many different areas. Maybe they're overweight, maybe they're underweight, maybe they're not muscular like you, maybe they have no muscles, and the current version of you is walking in judgment. Put in the comments right now if you're one of these assholes that come on my channel and you make comments about, well, he's just making money because his program is so expensive. Guess what? This program is not my breadwinner financially, but it brings in millions. Yes, I am. Why is that? Because my goal in this program is to provide so much more value than what we're charging for the program. And so if you're showing up in my channel with making comments like that, where is that judgment showing up in your life? And here's the $1 million question to that question. What is that type of judgment costing you? Put in the comments if you're starting to see what I'm talking about right now. If your goal is to restore your marriage and you're watching this video, put in the comments right now if you see where you've walked in that type of judgment and that type of leadership which contributed to the failure of your marriage. That's what it's costing you. But here's the thing. I'm not here to do what all of you are currently doing right now, complaining, condemning, or criticizing. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to encourage you to know that if you're doing these things that we're teaching, there's a way out. Well, how do you get out of it? Well, I don't really know how you get out of it, except we do have a free resource that's available to you where we can actually show you how to take the first step to stop paying the price of living the life that you're living right now, to start aligning your actions with your goals instead of aligning your actions with your feelings, which is costing you everything. What is that free resource? My video editor is putting it on the screen right now. It's a QR code and the website for my free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass. In this free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass, I'm teaching you how to take the first step to not only turn your marriage around, but to turn your life around. Have you always had this feeling deep down? There's got to be more to life than just this. I know that I was created for more than this, but you don't know what you don't know. Take the first step today. I'm teaching that masterclass live 17 more times this week. So right now, pause the video, scan the QR code, or go to the website, reserve your seat for the free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass right now, and take the first step to turn your life around. Put time on your side. I don't know how many of you were like this. Jeremiah, it seems like you didn't stay in this place as long as I did. I remember literally looking back on being stuck where I was. I was miserable. I literally was having thoughts of suicide. I reached out and I got help from 3 other programs, and none of it was the wisdom that I needed. None of it was. You know, it made me feel a little bit better about myself, and it kind of got me back on my feet a little bit, but it was so short-lived that I saw it wasn't making any progress. Really, not only not making progress in my marriage, but it really wasn't making progress in any relationship that I had in my life. Outside of it was just false hope because it was making me feel good. You know what I mean? And then when I realized that that's not doing anything to change my life, that put me in a worse off place. And I literally just remember, I was literally driving on the freeway close to San Juan. I live in Puerto Rico. And I remember having this thought. In Puerto Rico, there's not really any wildlife that's going to cross the road. Growing up as a child in Arkansas, I can vividly remember if my grandmother was driving and we hit a coon on the road, we literally would veer off the side of the road to get it because I sold their fur for $40 at the Walmart parking lot every 2 weeks. And my grandmother sold the meat once a month. We deep freezed it. That's how I was raised. But the point that I'm making is I started thinking about my life, and I thought, I've tried all these things and I've given up. I've given up on life. And I was in such state of fear and shock, and I was so stuck that I literally kind of had this thought, and I kind of think maybe God put it in my mind, that am I delusional to think that a magical animal is going to run across the road? I'm going to hit that, my car's going to absorb it, and the next morning I'm going to wake up and this nightmare was going to be over. Now, this happened the day after. From complete exhaustion, I probably hadn't slept good in 2 weeks, and it was about 3 p.m. one day, and I lay down to take a nap because I was just so tired, and I thought it was depression. I didn't wake up until 24 hours later. I had slept through the night and the entire day. I mean, I woke up dehydrated, and I forgot that I was going through a divorce and a separation. Like I literally had slept so, my body was exhausted to the point that I passed out, and I literally woke up and I forgot that I was going through a divorce. And I'll never forget this. The worst day of my life was that day. I got up, I went to pee, I went upstairs, and I'm like looking for my wife and my stepson. And I picked up my phone to text her, "Where you at, baby?" And it hit me like a shit ton of bricks. Your ass is separated and she's 2,000 miles away from you and doesn't want anything to do with you. And that's when I decided, we're doing something differently here. But that was the day for me. Put in the comments if you're in that state of delusion right now and you're expecting that magical unicorn to cross the road. But here, I'm also going to respond to those comments for you with some free resources that can be encouraging and helpful to you if that's where you're at. But did you ever experience that season at all, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I definitely did. Like the just pure exhaustion all the time, always tired. And then not only always tired, but can't sleep because your mind will not turn off. Like laying in bed and thoughts just racing through your head. And then when you finally get to sleep, you wake up an hour later with that same panic and anxiety to the point to where, I mean, you feel so hopeless in those moments.
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know. And until you find somebody to teach you what you don't know, you don't have a reason to have hope because you're not seeing your situation changing. Until you know what to do to change it, it's not going to change, which is one of the reasons that your friends and your family members will say, "Let her go, bro, move forward." Because it is literally, I would say, if I was a betting man and I were to ask anybody that I met on the street, have you ever seen a marriage where the wife wanted out and the man wanted the family restored, where she went and filed a divorce? Maybe even they went so far as to get a divorce. Have you ever seen any of those relationships restored? Have you even seen one? And I guarantee you that 999 people out of 1,000 will say, I've never seen that. You could ask counselors. Counselors know that their jobs are amicable divorce counselors, because almost all of their actual, students, whatever you want to call them, all of their marriages basically are going to end in divorce, because counseling doesn't typically work, hardly ever works when one wants out, but the other is trying to work on the relationship. It does have okay results if both people want to work on it, but even the statistics on that are absolutely horrible. So let's move forward. Let's land the plane here. So now we're going to living strong again. You've got your life back. So you brought up happy, I am happy, I am happy. What does that happiness look like for you now as a man after we taught you in the program how to choose happiness?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really more than just a mindset. Like, I can feel it in my body. I don't feel drained 24/7. I have energy to go back to the gym. I have energy to get up early and go for my runs. I don't know if, your people listen to this, cold plunging. I love cold plunging, but it got to the point where I couldn't even do that because I don't know, my nerves felt so sensitive. Like, I don't know what it was. It was just something about my whole body being stressed that I couldn't do it. So now I'm back to where, I'm going to the gym again. I'm able to run. I'm able to get up early. I'm able to enjoy my time with my kids, my friends, my coworker, my family, without these thoughts of dread 24/7, without the worries of what's going to happen tomorrow, without my heart rate being 120 while I'm sitting here. I'm back to my normal, relaxed self, with a much better mindset moving forward.
Let me ask you another question. When was the last time you would say you've been this happy in your life?
I don't know. It's been a while because, even thinking back while I was in my marriage, I was unhappy for a long time and didn't even know it.
Yeah.
And I think that contributed heavily to my marriage being where it was, because if I'm not happy, how could anybody else around me be happy? If I'm putting off that energy, if I'm living that life. So I can't remember the last time I felt more at peace and calm within myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes 100%. Let me ask you another question about, like, you mentioned cold plunge and all that. I'm just curious, before you joined the program, did you have a six pack, or has that come out since you've been in it?
No, that was before. Like, I was into working out probably since I was 19, and then I lost a bunch of weight when this started going on, and it actually made my six pack a little bit better because I lost so much weight. But
now I think that's the only benefit of going through a disaster like that in your life, unless you actually can find somebody to help you figure out how to navigate to get your life back on track. So speaking of your life and the outlook about your future, where you're going, how would you say your vision has changed or expanded since joining DivorceStoppers and you making the decision with what we're teaching, how to rebuild and rebrand yourself?
yeah, it really forced me to look at myself a little bit harder, because we have these ideas of who we are, going on, whether it's, like I said earlier, I'm shy, I'm timid, I'm whatever, but that's not true. That's just kind of what you're telling yourself. And that's not who you are. That's what you think you are. So as you're going through and you're kind of rebuilding yourself, and you start to realize that, you could be more than what you think you are. You can do more than what you think you could do. You just have to do it and put forth the effort to get it done.
Do you feel like that this has positioned you where you're finally taking those steps to walk into your calling, your anointing as a man?
Yeah, I do. One of the things that I will say about this program is, regardless of all the other things, that the benefits that you're going to get from a relationship standpoint, it's also helpful from a self-development and building confidence standpoint, because it teaches you, not only how to recognize how you feel about things, but see the way other people feel about things so they feel heard, valued, and understood. But it comes back to where, okay, I see my full capacity and what I can do in this situation. And it kind of goes back to that point to where you're less reactive. Like, when something happens, it's not, oh, I can't do that. It's, okay, how can I do that? Does that make sense, Denver?
Well, yeah, I figured out 997 ways how to not make a light bulb, but that fucking light bulb is going to be built. One of the things that I'm teaching in the program is to get a vision, make it plain, write it down, and run to it. We're teaching that scripture. How do you practically do that? That's part of stepping into your anointing, stepping into your calling, stepping into the life that you're created to have. How would you say, concerning your vision, what's the biggest difference between the man you were and the man you are now with that vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think just having the vision is the biggest part. Like for so long, I was in the military, then I got out of that, I went to school, and I was developing my career for so long. And then you get to the point to where you're just living your life. You're not really progressing in a meaningful way anymore. It's kind of a day-to-day grind. You get up, you go to work, you go to the gym. And having that vision and setting it gives you that opportunity to look at areas to improve again. So you stop just going the day to day, but you actually start building something new and progressing in new ways. And I would say that had been missing from my life probably for about 5 to 6 years.
Let me ask you a question following up to that. And I can relate to everything that you're saying because I was basically the first student in this version of the DivorceStoppers. Obviously, we've tweaked it over the past several years and made it, and just made it crush it in different areas that we could to improve it, added additional coaching sessions, added additional coach. But a lot of people that might be watching this be like, well, maybe that's a unique scenario. You have an inside perspective where you can see other students, hundreds of other students, share maybe your experience that this is not unique to me or this is unique to me. Just be completely honest about maybe some transformations that you've seen that have blown your mind. Because for somebody right now that might be watching this is like, well, I know it worked for him, but can it work for me? Have you seen other people that you might have been like, I don't know that they have a snowball's chance in hell of this working for them?
Yeah, one of the neat things about the program with the coaching calls multiple times per week and then the Iron Sharpens Iron group is you don't know these people, but you know these people. You know what I mean? It's like, I've never met these people, but I hear their problems every week. I see their problems every week. And I've been in the program long enough where I get to see new people come in and I get to hear them at the beginning when they first join. And then I get to hear them towards the end when they've been in the program for months.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see them go from somebody who was just like me, who was literally terrified and just looking for somebody to fix the problem to, hey, this is now something that I can manage and I can do. And then even, the physical changes in people, we get to see gym updates and progress pics, and you get to see people out doing things in their life that they wouldn't normally do. So it's really, really fun to see the people in the group growing as much or more than you. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, I enjoy watching it still to this day. So if there's a man watching this video right now, he feels powerless, he feels hopeless, and he basically is at the lowest point in his life where he has given up or he's thinking about it because he just doesn't see a path forward. What would you say to that man and why would you say it?
First thing I would say is you're not alone. I mean, there are so many people going through your exact situation, and going through it alone is terrifying. So definitely find someone to help you, whether or not it's this program, a friend or a family member. Find someone to talk to. And my recommendation, knowing what I know now, would be to join the DivorceStoppers, just because you build a community around people who are in your situation and people who want to level up in their life and not only fix their relationships, but fix multiple aspects of their life, because the bad relationship is most likely a symptom of something else going wrong that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. And so I want to paraphrase what Jeremiah is saying here. If you are in a situation where you're at the lowest you've ever been, listen, I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor. I had 3 specialists tell me you need to be on hospice. You absolutely have 6 months or less left to live. I lost my ability to eat. I lost my ability to speak. I lost my ability to walk, and I was on my deathbed. I literally did receive a supernatural, instantaneous, medically documented miracle that saved my life. But I did not do it until I was obedient to get off my ass and take action. So if you're waiting on the magical unicorn to cross the road and you are in this delusion that you have more time to get your life back on track, you don't. For every day that goes by that you're taking in action, maybe you've already taken an action step, but you went to the wrong place. You found somebody with the wrong wisdom, and you've realized that what you purchased over there is not actually worth more than rubies. And maybe you know that you're in a place that Jeremiah was in, that I was in, that so many of my other students are in, where that their life is derailed and they've given up hope. They tried something, it didn't work. They're making comments. You know, have you said things like, well, I just give my marriage to God? Listen, friends, God maybe wants to help you with your marriage, but he doesn't have a return desk where you can hand your life or your marriage back to him. He wants you to get up and take action. Find a lifeboat where they actually know how to pull people in. Put time on your side, don't drown. So we have a couple of resources that you can do right now today to take the first steps. Earlier, I told you about the free masterclass. Register for that if you haven't already done that. But here's something else that you can do today. If you've watched enough of my videos where you know that you need to put time on your side, your marriage and your life is both going to hell, and you want to take action and do something to radically turn the train around where your life is going to hell, your marriage is going to hell, your children is going to hell, they are having emotional issues because of what you're going through. If you want to take the first step of turning all of that around today, I'm going to do something different that I never do on these YouTube videos. Right now, my video lecturer is putting a QR code on the screen to actually book a strategy session call with us and let us show you how to take the first step to turn all of this around. Let us see if you're a good fit for the program that we have called Divorce Stoppers, where not only is it designed to turn your marriage around, but it's designed to turn your life around in a way that it's the right type of masculine communication and leadership that causes everybody else in your life to prosper by your changes. Your changes can change other people. And there's no feeling like implementing the law of reciprocity when you show up in a way that you actually are helping every single other person around you. And you see that God has designed this beautiful, vast universe to bring that back onto you in the way of blessings in those relationships. This changes your mind to show you that feeling that you might have always had, where you know there's something more. You've always known it, you've always felt it, but you've never known how to step into that calling. Scan the QR code, go to the website, denvergriffin.com, book a strategy session call with us today, and let us see if you're in a place where it makes sense to put time on your side and to take action. For a lot of you watching this video right now, you're at a crossroads. Right now, you have a decision. If you don't take action, where is your life for sure going to end up? But you have another opportunity. You have another choice. And for a lot of you, this choice is short-lived. The opportunity to go left, to take another route, that door might be closing and coming to an end. And so life is full of small decisions. And how many times throughout your life have you made one little small decision that was good and it forever changed the direction that your life was going? On the other side of that, how many times in your life have you made one small decision, but it radically changed your life for the worse and put you in a place that you never thought it would take you? Today, I'm giving you that opportunity by scanning the QR code, going to the website, exercise your faith with action, and know that there is a reason to have hope, but you've got to get up and make it happen, friends. I would be 6 feet under today in a casket or an urn if I didn't take action and fight for my life like a junkyard fucking dog. And if you don't get up and do something radically different, your life is going to go where you think it's headed, which is to hell in a handbasket. But you have the choice to change that today. Scan that QR code. Additionally, if you're struggling with positive, polite, and playful because you're dealing with depression, and you're not feeling like you're happy and you don't know how to make that happen, right now, my video lecturer is putting up at the end screen right now 2 videos that can actually help you start making some steps today to stop aligning your actions with your feelings, to snap out of depression, to start showing up positive, polite, and playful, smiling, and actually feeling happy. All of these idiots out there that are teaching what I learned in school, majoring in counseling, when I was being taught psychology, that people can't control how they feel, they can't help their feelings, that was a lie from hell. You 100% can help how your feelings. Watch these next 2 videos, and I'm going to show you how to do that.